Hello everyone, today we'll be exploring how to set your model up, how to export, how to get it inside of Rizom-Lab's Unfold3d virtual spaces, and how to take advantage of some of the powerful selection modes the program offers. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we have our model in the groups that we may want to select down the line. This is going to make it easy to group parts for packing, hide parts, and just general make selections easier. So make sure you have your model grouped. Let's say you have an armor over a piece of a body, or you have a magazine inside the model. You don't need to explode it as long as everything's grouped. So with everything grouped, you usually just want to run some sort of automatic UV layout. Planar mapping does have some issues, so I recommend using an automatic map, maybe a cylindrical, but try to avoid planar. With the group selected, file export selection. I'll just, it's not planar mapped, but it, automatic mapped. So inside of Unfold3d, we want to go to File, Load UV. We want to take the one that is planar mapped, or sorry, automatic mapped. And you can see, since we did run automatic mapping, we do have some seams here. I like to start my unwraps based on normal angle, not based on anything automatic, even though this does look alright. On more complex models, it may put a lot of seams where I don't want them, and the time spent cleaning that up can be even longer. So what I first want to do is go to this UV thing, UV pane, F2 for edge selection right here. Select all of this, and then I want to weld all these together so that I have no seams. By the way, if you try to do it in this left viewport, there is backface masking, so you're not going to get these back faces. So you do want to do it in the UV pane. You want to go in here, you want to weld these seams. So we're going to use the hotkey W, or weld. Now everything's welded together. Since we do have the color display on, you can see everything is incredibly distorted, as it should be. So from here we want to start getting some seams on the model. One way is to, in edge mode, we can start clicking, control click to select more, control shift click to deselect, and then if you click off the model, they're all gone. You also have an edge loop mode, so if I click here and then use this select loops, it'll select this loop around. You can also ring select, select all. I encourage you to try all these selection modes out, but primarily we're going to be using the edge loop tool. Also, if you have an edge loop but you don't want to select the entire edge loop, you can go down to edge loop parameters and edge count limit, and you can say I only want it to select one edge to the left, or to the top or to the bottom. I don't tend to use this too often, so I usually turn this off. Also, if you click and you shift select, it'll do the shortest selection tool. This can be a great way for selecting edge loops quickly, and if you click, it'll make that a selection. So we could start by going here, double clicking this edge loop, using the C tool to cut right here, and we could go and we could cut all our edges in. What I prefer to do is use the auto seams option that Unfold3d offers. So I'm going to start using the sharpest angles tool, and both of these are on by default, so let's press that. And what it's doing is it's putting an edge selection at every angle that is greater than 90 degrees. The hole lengths is also trying to ensure that UVs that touch all the way around, they have an edge in them. This is a great feature to have, but I find myself not using it, as I prefer to place the seams on the bottom of, in this case, the suppressor, where it won't be seen in first person. So let me turn this off. Let me run this tool again, and as you can see, it's giving us nice selections on all edges that are 90 degrees or above. You also have your pelt tool, which will do a pelt select. This, I'm sure, is great for characters, trees, scan data, etc. On hard surface models, I tend to use the sharpest angles tool. The mosaic tool is also similar, where it should be good for characters, scan data, etc. So I'm going to use the sharpest angles tool. We have everything here. I'm going to want to use C for cut. And then what I want to do is, now that all these edges are selected, I want to unfold everything. Of course, this is going to look terrible. If I want to scale everything down a little bit, I can go to Layout Global, and I can just run a quick pack. of course this isn't going to help the unwrap any, but what it will do is let us see which areas unwrapped fine and which need a little bit of work. So obviously this area, we need to put a seam down here. So what I can do is I can press F2. I can double click this edge, or again I can select this edge, select here. I want to put a cut here. And then F4 for island selection. Click on the island either here or in the UV. Maybe drag it off to the right, and then I want to press Unfold or U. And now it's giving us a great unfold. I want to rotate this a little bit, so I'm using spacebar and right mouse button. You can also have it snap to 45-degree angles by using this in tool. If you want to move it with the keyboard, you can use up, down, left, right on your keyboard. I don't do that too often. What I usually do is spacebar, middle mouse button to move, and then again spacebar, left mouse button to scale the model up and down. So now that we have this over here, we can start optimizing this a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to go to F2. I want to double click this edge loop. And what we really want to do is we want to straighten out these edges, because when you bake this, if you have the diagonal lines and lines that are kind of wobbly like this, the bake isn't going to be as good, the UV pack won't be as good, so in general it's a good practice to straighten these. So we want to use the constrain tools to do this. So for this we want to constrain these two vertically, which is this green up and down edge right here. For these we want to constrain these horizontally. And now if we hit F4 again, select this island, we can press optimize, and what that will do is optimize the unfold that we already have. You do not need to use unfold again. And so now you can see it straighten these edges out. These inside edges are fine, but the problem is these are touching, so in the bake these are, that's a little too close together. So what I want to do is I want to use F1, and then I can use the keyboard to move these to the right and the left. I can also use tab and drag this to the right or the left, because if I use spacebar and middle mouse button, you can kind of drag it to the right, but your hand will go up and down a little bit, so you can use tab to move it left and right. You can also scale the model with tab. So using the tab you get these corners. If you want to scale it non-uniformly, you can hold tab and shift and move it around like that. You can also move, you can rotate with the snap settings. Also, if you always want this tool on, you can press show tool. I tend not to like that, so I keep it off. Back to the unwrap. You want to do F1, move this to the right. And so what happens if I move this to the right and I do all my moves, and then I press optimize again, which is O on the keyboard, it's going to move this back to where it began. So what we want to use is we want to use the pinning tools that Unfold3d offers. So we want to move this to the right, we want to move this to the left, and now what we want to do is we want to drag select, and again control select to add more, and we want to use the constrain pin. So now these are pinned. These will not move when optimize is used. We also want to ensure that the borders of this model are pinned, because if these are not pinned, it might start to distort the outside of the model. So now that the outsides are selected, let's pin them. Let's do the same thing for these, where we move this to the right, this to the left, drag select, pin. Same thing for these. And if you want some other selection tools, we have a lasso, we have a marquee selection tool, and we also have a sorry, you double click to get rid of that. That was I do not use that tool very often. You also have the area tool circle to select a circle, but I usually tend to stay with the lasso or the rectangle. Drag this to the right, drag this to the left, and we're going to pin these two. I pressed P, which actually packs, so let me undo that. The hotkey for pin is Alt-P, not P. So now these are pinned. I want to do the same for these. Select, pin, or Alt-P. And now, just a quick note. Let's say I'm working on this island and I'm unsure where this whole island is. I can either click and I get a good idea, but if I'm not doing that, I can go to the color options for the island, color display, and I can turn on island topology. And so this is showing me a different color for every island that I have. Sometimes this can be very helpful to have on instead of the stretching. So let's leave this on for now. Anyways, with all of this pinned, I can press O for optimize. And as you can see, it did its best to optimize the mesh. And I'm going to switch back to stretch because we are unwrapping. And you can see we do have a little stretching here. We most likely have a little stretching here. But overall, it's doing a great job of making sure we have space here while maintaining a good unwrap. The one thing we can do is we can go to these edges here and double click for edge loop and make sure these are vertically constrained. Because right now you see it's kind of going up to the right, up to the left, and that's definitely going to cause some distortion in the UV map because it is, as you can see, a straight line. So go back to F4 island, back to optimize, and now this looks, that's a really nice unwrap. We can do the same thing with this island. We can see what happened is the sharpest angles. We have a bevel here, so it's not selecting that. So what we can do is double click here. Double click here, we put a cut in here, and now when we press F4 and U, F4 U, F4 U, it's these are all separate now. So if we are to run a quick pack, we're going to have everything packed. There we go. So now that everything's looking pretty good, we can come here. You can always try to line these up, but overall this is the basics of unwrapping inside Unfold3d. If you want to see a few more features, we have these modify features here for the map. So let's say you're in your vertex selection and you want to move, kind of move these together, maybe pin them, stretch them, etc. We have the drag hotkey, so this will drag your UVs regardless of selection. It won't drag pinned UVs though. If you do want to drag pinned UVs, you can disable them, and now you're dragging everything. This can be useful for character hands and character faces. We also have spread, so it's going to spread these UVs apart from one another. Pinch will bring these UVs closer together and pinch them. The unfold brush will try to unfold the model as you brush over it, and optimize will do the same thing. We can notice this if we turn on these constraints, turn off these pin constraints, and now we go over here. You can see it's trying to optimize the model back to where we started. This can be great if you have a part of the model that's unfolding really well, or the entire model is unfolding really well, but part of it isn't. That can be very helpful. And then the last selection thing I want to show you is you can isolate individual parts of the mesh. So if we press F4 and we turn back on the selection tool, we can isolate this island. So now the only thing that is visible is this island in here. We can show all islands. So now we're seeing everything else again. We also have this file selection dialog, file data selection dialog. This can be used to select the parts of the model we set up. So if you have your group suppressor, you can click and select, and that will select that over here, and then you can work with it that way. And that covers basic unwrapping and unfolding. In the next video, I will be showing you some packing features as well as some group features.